The silence was the first thing I noticed. Not the comfortable kind of silence, where everyone is simply too busy eating or breathing or doing something productive with their lives. No. This was the kind of silence that crawls under your skin, parks itself next to your spine, and whispers, something is very, very wrong. And something was. I, Vorath-Senn, 3rd Commander of the Grelian Imperial Fleet, advisor to Queen Dusa, decorated veteran of 17 interstellar campaigns, was standing in the middle of the Great Assembly Hall with 400 of the most powerful beings in the known galaxy staring at me like I had just sneezed on a sacred artifact. Which, for the record, I had not. What I had done, apparently, was something far worse. I had made the human laugh. Her name was Mira Osei. She was the first human diplomat ever permitted to set foot inside the Grelian throne city of Volos Prime, a fact that the Queen's court had reminded everyone approximately 600 times since her shuttle touched down 3 days ago. She was short by our standards, broad-shouldered, with dark skin and hair twisted into coils that defied gravitational logic. She wore the silver diplomatic uniform of the Terran Collective with a small pin on her chest that read, in tiny human letters, "I survived the orientation briefing." I had asked her what the pin meant. She had told me. I had laughed. And now, standing in the middle of the Great Assembly Hall, during the opening ceremony of the Galactic Compact negotiations, which had been 6 years in planning, I was beginning to understand that laughing in the presence of the Queen's court, at something a human had said, was apparently the diplomatic equivalent of declaring war on everyone in the room simultaneously. My superior, High Commander Vorath, was staring at me with the kind of expression usually reserved for soldiers who accidentally fire their weapons inside the command bridge. His jaw was moving but no sound was coming out, which, honestly, was probably for the best. Queen Dusa herself sat on the elevated throne at the far end of the hall. She was ancient and enormous, her bioluminescent skin cycling through slow patterns of deep violet and cold blue, which, I happened to know, indicated displeasure. Not quiet displeasure. The kind of displeasure that ends careers. Or planets. Depending on her mood. And then something happened that nobody, not even Queen Dusa herself, seemed prepared for. Princess Oryn moved. Oryn was the Queen's only daughter, heir to the Grelian throne, future ruler of 47 star systems. She had been standing 3 steps below her mother's throne in ceremonial silence, as per tradition. She was tall, even by Grelian standards, with luminescent silver markings running along her arms and neck, and eyes the color of a dying star, which sounds poetic until you are standing directly in front of them and realizing they are aimed at you. She stepped down from the dais. She crossed the hall. The entire room held its breath. And then, Princess Oryn, heir to the Grelian Empire, wrapped both of her arms around the human diplomat, Mira Osei, in what was unmistakably, impossibly, and absolutely scandalously, a hug. A hug. Not a formal greeting clasp. Not a diplomatic chest touch. Not even a respectful shoulder press, which was the absolute outer limit of acceptable physical contact during the opening ceremony. A hug. Full arms. Around the human. Who, to her enormous credit, hugged back without missing a single beat. The silence that followed was not the same silence as before. This one had texture. It had weight. It had the distinct quality of 400 political careers flashing before 400 sets of eyes. Vorath made a sound somewhere between a cough and a dying engine. I stood very still, because I had been a soldier long enough to know that when you do not understand what is happening, the correct strategy is to do absolutely nothing and hope that whatever it is, it lands on someone else. It did not land on someone else. Princess Oryn released the human, stepped back with perfect composure, and then turned to look at me. Directly at me. With those dying star eyes. "Commander Vorath-Senn," she said, in a voice that carried across the entire hall without effort, "you are the first Grelian in living memory to laugh without permission in the Queen's court." I opened my mouth. I closed it. She tilted her head. "I find that," she said, slowly, extremely interesting. And behind me, I heard Mira Osei whisper, very quietly, "Oh, buddy. You have no idea what just started." She was right. I had absolutely no idea that. I want to be very clear about something. I had survived the Battle of Kethvorin, where 3 Grelian warships were swallowed by a collapsing nebula, and I navigated out using nothing but a broken Enevican soul and stubbornness. I had survived the siege of Prelum Station, where I went 42 hours without sleep, food, or a single functioning weapon system. I had once, famously, survived a diplomatic dinner hosted by the Durak warlords, which involved eating something that was still moving and smiling like I enjoyed it. I was not, by any reasonable definition, an easily frightened being. And yet, standing in the great assembly hall of Velas Prime, with Princess Oryn looking at me like I was a puzzle she had already decided to solve, I felt something I had not felt since my first day of military training. Genuine, uncomplicated, embarrassing terror. The court was still silent. 400 dignitaries, ambassadors, and advisors, all of them motionless, all of them watching, none of them breathing loud enough to be heard, because every single one of them understood something I was only beginning to grasp. Whatever was happening in this hall right now, it was not a small thing. It was not a misunderstanding that could be smoothed over with a formal apology and a well-timed bow. This was something else entirely. Queen Dusa had not moved from her throne. Her bioluminescent patterns had shifted, and not toward the cold blues of displeasure anymore. They were cycling through something slower now, something I had never seen on the Queen before. Her court advisors were exchanging glances with the controlled panic of people who have trained their entire lives to show no emotion and are currently losing that battle badly. Mira Osei stepped up beside me. She did it quietly, without ceremony, the way she see me. To do most things, like someone who had long ago decided that confidence was simply a choice you made every morning before breakfast. She stood at my shoulder, looked out at the frozen assembly hall, and said, under her breath, "So. Is this the part where we run, or the part where we stand very still and look important?" "Stand still," I said, also under my breath, barely moving my mouth. "Absolutely do not move. Do not smile. Do not make any sound that could be interpreted as amusement." "Got it," she whispered. A pause. "Can I breathe?" "Mira." "Right. Standing still. Very important. On it." Princess Oryn had not taken her eyes off me. She clasped her hands behind her back, tilted her chin upward slightly, and spoke again, this time loud enough for the entire hall. "Mother," she said, addressing the Queen with the kind of calm that only people born into absolute power can manufacture, "I would like to request a recess of the opening ceremony. 1 standard hour. I wish to speak with Commander Vorath-Senn and the Terran diplomat." The silence stretched out like a wire pulled too tight. And then Queen Dusa, ruler of 47 star systems, ancient and terrifying and entirely unpredictable, made a sound. She laughed. It was not a long laugh. It was not even a particularly loud one. But in that hall, after that silence, it landed like a detonation. Every advisor, every dignitary, every decorated commander and senior official in that room visibly flinched at the same moment, which, under different circumstances, would have been genuinely funny. "Granted," the Queen said. Just that. One word. And then she settled back into her throne and her patterns shifted into something that, if I was reading them correctly, looked almost like amusement. I did not understand what was happening. I understood it less when Princess Oryn turned and walked toward the eastern corridor, clearly expecting us to follow, and somehow my feet were already moving before my brain had finished processing the instruction. Mira kept pace with me easily. She hugged me, Mira said quietly, as we walked. I noticed. Do Grelians not hug? Not publicly. Not during a formal ceremony. Not the heir to the throne, certainly not a foreign diplomat she had never spoken to before. Said Mira, in the tone of someone filing information away at high speed. So why did she? I do not know. And why did the Queen laugh? I do not know that either. But you are a senior court advisor. Yes. And you do not know. Mira. I am just establishing the situation clearly. The situation, I said, is that we are following the Imperial Princess down a restricted corridor after she publicly embraced you in front of the entire Galactic Compact Assembly, and neither of us has any idea why, and somehow that is now our problem to solve. She considered that for a moment. You know what, she said, back on Earth, we have a word for days like this. What word? She smiled. Tuesday. The corridor ended at a private chamber. Princess Oryn stopped at the entrance, turned, and looked at the two of us with those star-colored eyes. Then she said something that I would spend the rest of my career trying to fully understand. Vorath-Senn, she said, my mother has been watching you for 3 years. She says you are the only Grellian in her court who still knows how to feel something real. She paused. She sent me to find out if the human made you feel it too. The silence this time was mine. Mira looked at me. I looked at Oryn. And somewhere, impossibly far away, the future of two civilizations balanced on the answer to a question nobody had thought to put in the diplomatic briefing. I took a breath. Yes, I said. She did. Oryn nodded once, like I had confirmed something she already knew. Good, she said simply. Then we can begin. Friends, if you are enjoying our videos and want to watch new and exciting sci-fi and HFY stories every day, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to turn on the bell icon so you never miss any of our latest uploads. Like the video and share it with your friends as well, so our community can continue to grow and bring you even more amazing content.